Who will protect my children? The journey. Why the need for the journey of exploration? This begins part 1 of 4 of the recording, Who Will Protect My Children? The Journey. The total recording is in 4 parts. Introduction. As stated in the first recording, the title for this series of recordings, Who Will Protect My Children?, is about fulfilling a request made of me, which at the time of this writing was approximately 37 years earlier in 1987. In the first recording, the following 2 reasons were given for this 37 years. The first and foremost, quite simply, is I misunderstood the request as to what it was really all about and what it required. The second reason the request took so long to fulfill is I had to experience a variety of aspects about our creativity to understand the depth and breadth of creativity available to us. In many ways, to experience these aspects about our creativity, it was like planting a variety of different seeds, and then watching the different seeds grow at different rates and unfold to mature and bear fruit, and each day to observe and learn about the process. Described below is the reason why fulfilling this request required an unexpected, rather lengthy journey, which can be called a journey into the exploration of our creativity. However, it, in essence, has been a lifelong journey. And, as discussed in the first recording, the journey of my life was foreshadowed in my desire to play the violin at age 4. I was told in a polite, non-discouraging way I was too young. But what is interesting is the foreshadowing. There was the need to make a violin starting from a seed. Both the need for the seed to grow and then for the violin needing to be made was extremely foreshadowing, as you will see in the discussion of the journey. As will be discussed, one can say this lifelong journey was the unconscious journey of compassion into hell and back to meet the God of the underworld. At the time I heard the request, Who will protect my children?, I did not realize I was on a journey. However, roughly 4 years later, in choosing to consciously explore our creativity as a manager, to get people out of the box of their limited thinking, did I come to eventually see my whole life journey was about taking a journey of exploration into our creativity. It can be said taking this journey was the reason for my incarnation and reflected in my life path, such that I had been gently guided throughout my life to stay in this journey and give me the experiences I needed. On this point of our life path, I want to emphasize my observations in the exploration of our creativity is we each have a life path and we each have a role we incarnated to play in a larger orchestration of creation. If you wish, look at the total number of individual cells in the human body. The number of cells is estimated to be 28 to 36 trillion cells, depending on the size. Each of these cells has a role and a function in the body. Otherwise, it would not be needed. So to each of us. We each have a unique role in a larger orchestration within creation. Given there are about 8 billion humans on the planet today, and if each is a cell in a larger organization of creation, the larger organization of what humans are a part, the human role is a rather small compared to the analogous human body representing the orchestration within creation. 8 billion is a small percentage when we understand 1 trillion is 1,000 billion. The organization within creation, as compared to the human body, is an organization of creation 1,000 times larger than the collective individual 8 billion cells each human would and does represent. In essence, at best, 8 billion human cells is analogously represented as an organ of the larger body of creation. How important is this, quote, human organ in the creation is another question. Nevertheless, as each cell in the human body, each human does have a specific role or part to play in a vast creation like an individual cell within the human body. Our challenge is, do we live our role or do we get diverted for whatever reason it may be, and the gift we have to offer in playing our role never gets delivered? In getting diverted from our role, are we not like cancerous cells or cells that have lost their purpose and direction? Are humans who lost their purpose and direction analogous cancerous cell? Hence, one reason why we need to protect and nurture the creative spirit within each to preserve their ability to develop the ability to bring their unique gifts into the world rather than becoming a cancerous entity. If there is one message with which I would hope to leave you with, is that in hearing about how my life unfolded in this journey, of exploration of our creativity, it is hoped you realize your life is similarly guided and you are being groomed for what you incarnated to do, regardless of what your mind may think about your life and what you think you need to do in life. Before moving on, it is appropriate to note that there was nothing special about my life. We each come with our own unique life path and experiences to which we are guided to gain the abilities to manifest the gifts we have to offer. The only difference in my life is I became aware of how my life unfolded to be guided to the experiences which gave me the understanding about our creativity. It is hoped that talking about my life in this overview will trigger some insights about your own life and how it has been and is being guided. Why the need for the journey? Relative to understanding to what Who Will Protect My Children referred, the journey was necessary for 3 reasons. One was to explore and experience certain aspects of our creativity for information and understanding that is not found in books. Quite simply, creativity and creation is an experience, and some things can only be correctly understood in an experience. The second was an understanding how and why our creativity is important relative to protecting the children. The third was understanding how protecting the children was about each of us having a unique lifelong journey within the orchestration of creation. As the pieces of the understanding were obtained through the experiences provided by the journey of exploration into our creativity, the understanding as to the importance of our creativity was gained, and what was gained could not be learned through books. Any book information I could use was more about finding some kind of verification of certain aspects of what I was experiencing, and such information was not always available since, as said, one cannot put into words something that is experiential. It is like the difference between a book on how to ride a bicycle is quite different than actually riding the bicycle. What is presented here is different than what is usually told in describing a journey. That is, describing the sequence of events which provide details of the journey. The only real reason to discuss details of my life would be to see what information about our creativity was provided and how the information was extracted. Such details of my journey are told in other recordings. These other recordings may be useful for caregivers tasked with nurturing the creative spirit and its heartfelt passion to gain some insights about how our creative spirit and heartfelt passion unfold. What is provided here is a discussion to bring your attention to the importance of our life path and how that path is seen to direct and unfold our life, most often at a subconscious level, and giving rise to the improvisational performance available to us in life. In essence, there is an unseen aspect of our life that is driving our life. What is presented here about our life path is not necessarily addressed in many traditional understandings about our life in traditions which have a perspective or understanding of what the nature of the human is understood to be. What is provided here is my observations of what a human being is based on, holding our creativity sacred and nurturing our creative spirit and its heartfelt passion. As stated, I incorrectly interpreted what the request "Who Will Protect My Children" was about. I came to understand only in time, as the journey of exploration unfolded, that I gained more experiences on the journey to see my error. Alternatively said, the more pieces of understanding about our creativity I found, the greater the clarity about the big picture as to what the journey was all about. Here I might add, it was about 5 years after receiving the request the journey revealed itself to be about a journey of exploration into our creativity. It took another additional 3 years to understand, 1, the journey was a lifelong journey, and 2, I began to realize how incorrect my understanding of the children was. In regards to the information provided here, it is provided in hindsight after the dust, debris, and the chaos of change encountered in the journey had settled. A jigsaw puzzle. The reason why it has taken 37 years to fulfill the request is first and foremost, quite simply, I misunderstood the request as to what it really was all about and what it required. There was the need for sufficient time to obtain certain experiences about the world we inhabit and our creativity, then to digest and integrate all that had been learned and come to be understood. But a bigger part of the journey was about how the pieces of information arrived. Some of the pieces came through the experiences of life, all the way back into my childhood as early as age 2, and some did not arrive until May 2024. In many ways, the journey was much like assembling the pieces of a very large jigsaw puzzle without a picture of what the puzzle looked like. For those who are unaware and not familiar with the jigsaw puzzle is a picture printed on a piece of cardboard type paper that is then cut into maybe 100, 500, or 1,000 irregular shaped interlocking pieces where each piece carries a piece of the overall picture. Then all the pieces are thrown into a box. The individual is then offered the opportunity to reassemble the picture. This, of course, requires figuring out how to reassemble all the pieces to make the picture. Although often difficult, it is relatively easy to do if you know what the picture looks like. However, if you do not have any idea what the picture looks like and you are trying to assemble maybe 1,000 pieces, it becomes very difficult to figure out where all the pieces fit and how they fit together and what the final larger picture looks like. But the journey itself was much like traveling through a series of folded mountains, such that there was a sequence to the experiences to obtain the understanding, but it was not simply going from one point straight to the next. Rather, it was about a journey between each important piece, much like in the figure. Each piece of the puzzle required a trek analogous to going around the mountain as in the diagram. Yet the trek itself may or may not be important to the data obtained. Sometimes it was the trek between the 2 points that provided the information. At other times, the trek just was to get to the next point to pick up a package of information, then go to the next point. In the case here, the jigsaw puzzle was a journey into the exploration of what experiences of life offered a necessary piece of understanding and knowledge that was needed. The pieces were needed to see the real depth and breadth of creativity available to each of us, and what does our creativity really represent. Relative to finding the pieces, here it can be noted an important piece, and hopefully the final piece of the puzzle, did not arrive until May 2024 in a discussion with a friend about our creativity. It is in obtaining this last piece what prompted this series of recordings. On fulfilling the request, "Who will protect my children?" what is provided in these recordings is very much about looking back and asking what really happened, what unfolded, how it unfolded, what was learned and understood, and what is ultimately needed to be communicated. Why the need to explore our creativity? In many ways, there was the question, is our creativity just for what we call the creative arts and finding new ideas, or something much more? Many see creativity as an ability that some people have and others do not have, much like one has the ability for sports, writing, music, and the like. Here we need to realize many see creativity as reflected in the creative arts normally seen as dance, drama, theater, music, visual arts, whether it be painting, sculpture, film, or photography. Or from a more managerial perspective, creativity is just about finding new ideas. Rarely does one look at our creativity as something that cuts across all domains of cognitive abilities, language, social interactions, and the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical aspects of our being, and even involving something more and unrecognized. One conclusion of this journey that was drawn is our creativity and our creative imagination is the most invaluable asset and ability we possess if we understand how to use it. Here, I have to emphasize if we know how to use it. Many use their creativity like holding a knife by the blade rather than the handle, then they wonder why they experience pain. Then others are asking to meet the god of the underworld without realizing it. But I came to find something even deeper and more expansive about our creativity than just our most invaluable asset that we may not know how to use. The need for certain types and kinds of particular experiences. What was not obvious, but only became clear over time, was the journey to be undertaken was about obtaining certain precise types and kinds of experiences. These experiences were needed to understand aspects of our creativity and what our creativity truly represented and not normally understood and overlooked, and in particular to understand how our creativity impacts our life. Only in hindsight did I see how important were the particular experiences. I had many of the experience such that at the time of having the experience, nothing seemed special about the experience. Other experiences were very clear in what was being provided, yet they were all experiences I needed to have for what they could provide for what was needed to be understood. Intellectual knowledge can be very different than experiential knowledge, especially when the mind has an incorrect understanding of something, let alone an actual experience of something. There are some things that only can be learned in experience, and mine will think otherwise. I had to experience certain types of creations created by individuals and observing the experience of those creations with an observing and questioning mind as to what I was really seeing. It was about asking and seeking an answer to two questions for the experience being had. The questions were, how did the situation arise to produce this experience, and why was it this way versus any other way? I had to experience the creation to see how it was or was not working to know how to change it. There was the need to understand how we got to where we are and what needed to change if a different outcome was desired. Needed experiences. Relative to obtaining the experiences, there were three areas that needed to be explored. One was simply, there were certain experiences that were needed to even begin to question if there was something about our creativity and creative imagination that was not understood. This aspect of the journey, quite simply, was about learning how to understand how we get to where we are for any experience we have as a result of the fundamental assumptions we make as to events in our life and to the nature of our creativity. Then there were the particular experiences I was led to and guided to experience. It was not about learning as in going to school. Rather, it was more like a fully accomplished professional learning a new technique that could not be understood without the prior knowledge and experience. It became very clear we needed a different paradigm about what humans are doing here in physical creation. The journey of exploration into our creativity revealed it is not being here as if going to school, as many traditions suggest. Rather, we are here provided with opportunities to perfect and better understand our inherent creative abilities and creative power. Here, creative ability is about both the understanding and the abilities we need and how to apply them to create what we desire. Creative power is about having and accessing the energy needed to manifest the desired creation. Both our creative ability and our creative power are needed for any creation. Removing beliefs and biases. The second area which needed to be explored was what belief, biases, and perceptions that I, the author, carried that needed to be shed to see the nature of reality for what it was and how our creativity related to the reality we were experiencing. In essence, I had to change the filters for which I was viewing creation and clean both sides of the lens of perception, inside and outside. Here the question was, have we created what we were experiencing, or did we choose to step into an existing creation to have an experience provided by that creation? In many ways, this went back to the question, why we are here and what are we really doing? My movement to break default thinking. On this point of looking at the biggest picture as to how creation works required me to move away from my default programming. It was clear in looking at reported experiences of individuals in different cultures there was the need to have some understanding of the context of the experience. Here it needs to be noted, our human mind continually looks to calm itself in thinking it knows what is faced within the journey into the unknown. The human mind will call upon all of its past experiences to control the journey, which only leads to recreating the past in a new way rather than moving into the possibilities never before experienced. Intuiting my journey at the early age, there was a collection of what I would call a variety of rhetorical questions that bubbled up inside of me about life and the world I was experiencing that caused me to actively look beyond my default culture. Having been raised in a Western European Judaic-Christian culture and educated as a physicist, my mind defaults to the stories and understandings of this culture, its training, and its Western psychology and science, including New Age thinking. Hence my default thinking to seeing some similarities in my story of the story of Moses and spending 40 years in the desert and not being able to enter the promised land. But there are other traditions that may be more appropriate to the interpretation. However, as to the journey I was on and being aware of my default thinking, I had continually looked to other cultures and traditions to make sense out of what I was experiencing on the journey of exploration on which I was traveling to change my default thinking, or at least to look at alternative ways of viewing what I experienced in the exploration on which I was being led. In particular, there was the Native American tradition, Eastern mysticism reflected more in the Taoist philosophy and some elements of Confucianism. Indian mysticism reflected more in the Buddhist than Hindu. And then there was what I would call the Guru and Ascended Masters tradition, the ancient Hawaiian Huna tradition, the Persian poets of the heart, and a variety of mythologies and related traditions to take me out of the box of my default thinking. So you will see a flavor of all of these different ways of thinking in the information provided, and essentially what is reported is not culturally centered or too biased by my personal preferences. Limitation of the human mind and a truly original creative endeavor. The third area to be explored was to understand the limitations of the human mind, yet marvel at the awesome creative power and creative ability to access information and play with the information in our creative imagination to create experiences. Exploring these areas were not separate journeys. Rather, some areas of experience occurred simultaneously together, whereas other experiences were perceived as individual pieces that was seemingly unrelated to the task at hand. These individual experiences were more like having an experience and asking what was this experience all about, only to see years later the importance of the experience. This hindsight then brought up the question, who or what has planned this journey I was experiencing? It was very obvious it was not through my conscious human mind or what I was taught to do in life. 3 important observations need to be made involving the human mind relative to a truly original creative endeavor. The first and most important is the nature of the human mind and what it means to create. To create means to bring something into existence. To create something lies on a spectrum. At one end of the spectrum is to create a copy of something which already exists. At the other end of the spectrum is something completely new and truly original, never before seen or experienced. The role of mind changes dramatically as one moves across this spectrum. If a copy of something is to be created, our mind is very important, for it needs to provide all the details to manifest the exact copy. However, if it is something new and truly original, never before seen or experienced at the opposite end of the spectrum, our mind has no reference as to what to expect or what it should look like. Hence, mind is of little value. Our mind can guess, it can extrapolate, it can do experiments to see what works or does not work, but it does not know. It may know the attributes of what it desires or wants to bring into existence, but it is not and cannot and will not be able to know what it looks like. Our mind cannot know, for what is being created has never before existed and experienced. Additionally, it is to be noted, our human mind does not like the unknown and is very uncomfortable in the unknown. There can be an anxiety in living without knowing, so mind continually looks for a way to calm itself and reassure itself and looks to understanding or a way to make sense out of the journey to create something not seen or previously experienced. Here, an important note needs to be made and understood. Our life is a new creation never before experienced. No one has lived our life previously, and no one will experience or live our life after we're gone. Our life is totally unknown and original. We, of course, with our human mind, think we know how the body will grow and unfold, and often think we know and understand how our life itself will also unfold. We look at others and we think our life will be similar. The assumption appears to be generally true and reasonably valid in many situations. Yet each body is unique and each body will unfold in its uniqueness. Additionally, our perception of what we are experiencing is unique. Yet our human mind continually persists in thinking we know and can know what our life is about or how it should unfold. This uncertainty about life gives rise to an anxiety about life. We each deal with this anxiety in our own unique way. Usually mind distracts itself and tries not to pay attention to any anxiety it may feel. Unfortunately, sometimes if one feels too much anxiety, some will try and numb the anxiety through an addiction or two, or we keep ourselves busy and never pay attention to the anxiety we have about the unknown. Paragraph 21. The second note is how my human mind perceived what the voice said and how I acted in response to the voice. My life experiences relative to fulfilling this request are important for 2 reasons. One is the experience themselves individually are not important. Rather, how they piece together over time is of what is important, for they reflect a process we all experience in a similar way. That is, we have to learn to let go of what we think and believe and expectations for a truly creative endeavor. The second reason is my experiences revealed how a human mind responds to a truly new, original, and never-before experienced creation that unfolds over a lifetime. So I could observe how my mind continually got in the way as to how it thought events should occur when it had no real understanding or idea. There is an old proverb: an individual learns from their experience. A wise individual learns from the experience of others. A fool never learns. It is hope you become wise and can learn from my experiences as what is relevant for you and your life in a truly original creation, and hopefully you will come to see our mind has little value, for it is in an area of the unknown relative to the mind's prior experiences. As stated above, I came to see over time I was already on a journey, but the journey was not known to my human mind. Only in hindsight did I come to understand I was on a journey to manifest something not previously seen or experienced in 3 ways. Of course, one of the 3 ways was my life itself, a new and unique creation, but there was also 2 other ways. The 2 other ways reflect where the journey was directed. A second way was obviously directed towards understanding the, quote, "my" of my children, and what the children and what to protect the children really meant, and what was required to protect the children. I had to be carried by the energy itself to have the experiences necessary to gain the understanding, for my mind was originally going in the wrong direction to fulfill that request. This is not to say I was not making important contributions in the service of people and protecting them from nuclear hazards, but my mind was not going in the correct direction for truly understanding the children. Only my heart kept my path true to the objective. The third way I was to experience a new, original, never-before experienced creation became a surprise to me. About 8 years after hearing the voice, I had an experience that gave rise to an insight which my mind characterized at the time as a gentle phoenix. But as with improperly characterizing the children, my mind characterized this gentle phoenix based upon my past experiences, the knowledge and understanding I had at the time, and the circumstances in which I found myself. Consequently, it too took time to obtain the experiences to fully understand exactly what this gentle phoenix could be. In any case, my mind's primary focus continually looked to make sense out of the journey, who are the children, and how they needed to be protected. And as such, my mind's interpreted the energy I experienced in the voice I perceived about a new, original, never-before experienced creation based on its past. My mind used what it thought the voice was about, using my past experiences in the context of when I heard the voice and what was going on in my life at the time. It used the best my human mind was capable of understanding at the time to characterize the energy I experienced and characterize the energy as who will protect my children. As a result, it incorrectly characterized the children, what it meant to protect the children, and incorrectly characterized who or what the, quote, "my" was relative to my children. At the time, I never dreamed or imagined there could be another way to characterize the energy I was experiencing. I just believed what my mind thought was correct. Similarly, my mind did not see the journey I was on, for it had no context or prior experience of such a journey. At the time I heard the voice, I did not see life as a journey. People talk about life being a journey. The only context I had for life being a journey is that we die and then got to go to some afterlife in which we believed. But to experience life as a journey to an objective that we cannot see or fully understand is very challenging to our human mind. I had no context to see life as a journey other than the intellectual words that life is a journey. That is, until I stood back and looked at my life overall and how the experiences of my life have woven a pattern. Relative to life being a journey, for example, if I said to you, live your life in a journey, get in your car and drive in the direction the sun sets every day. Then when you get the urge, start driving keeping the direction the sun sets on your left side until you get the urge to turn around and drive with the direction the sun sets on your right side. Any obstacles you face, go over it and go through it or go around it and continue your journey. You would probably say that's a crazy way to live life, but to live life in such a way you would be more aware of being on a journey as opposed to every day going to work day after day and returning, continually repeating the same pattern. In many ways, life is like a journey that seems to not make any sense for our human mind and does not know where it is going other than to eventually die. This completes part 1 of 4 of the recording, Who Will Protect My Children? The Journey.